Hello, my name is Darren Lee, and I am the planner that has been assigned to this Board of Zoning Appeals case 2205B04 for a variance request for a covered boat slip in Harborview Circle. I'd like to first start off by mentioning that the case has been properly advertised and direct mail notices have been sent to the adjacent property owners. We have also received correspondence from them, which I will also mention later on in this presentation. So I just wanted to make mention of that for the board chairman as well as the other board members that are listening to this presentation today. The second slide, I want to start with the site location. As you can see, the yellow arrow on the screen points to the property where the boathouse has been constructed. This is a after the fact request for a boathouse. And so I wanted to also begin with some of the property history. As we look at a closer shot here, we can see from this Google aerial image the location of the boathouse. But before we get there, I just wanted to kind of backtrack on, just the property itself. That was actually subdivided back in 1948 as part of the Bleak Hall subdivision. Since then, there have been multiple owners on this property. But the most recent property owner is Mr. David Skinner, who purchased this property in September of 2020. Following the purchase in September 2020, I wanted to get into some of the permitting history. One of the first things that were permitted for this property was a 6x80 pier with an L head and catwalk. And that permit was in November of 2020 under VMRC number 2020-1875. As these new projects were continuing and new plans were made to improve the property, somewhere along the line the boathouse got constructed and our office was made aware of that. And so a notice of violation was sent in April of 2021 by one of our former planners, Sammy Snyder, who is no longer with our office. But during that time, he did send out a notice of violation. After the notice of violation was sent out, a variance application was submitted in June of 2021. However, that application was considered incomplete because drawings or plans were never submitted showing the covered slip of how it was constructed, any of its dimensions or anything. And so now we look at these existing site conditions. The photo to the left shows the boathouse looking down from the top of the hill, and the photo on the right also shows the pier and the boathouse. And as was mentioned previously, the pier had always been properly permitted, but the boathouse was never on the original plans. So I was reassigned to the Washington District area in March of 2022. And as a result of that, I have been picking up on the compliance on this site. The next set of photos show existing conditions. The photo on the left showing everything facing the southwest, and the photo on the right shows everything facing the northeast. The plans that were submitted for this case are shown on the screen. I highlighted the actual boat house or covered slip area in yellow. So you should be able to see that clearly. So we can start looking at the actual issue that is at hand. When boathouses are constructed according to Article 4-9 of the zoning ordinance, there are many criteria that have to be met. And although that this case does meet most of the criteria, there are a few criteria that were not met, and that is the reason why we are here. One of the main things was the width of the water frontage. In order to construct a boathouse by right, the water frontage has to be at least 100 feet. In this case, the water frontage is only about 68 to 69 feet, which makes a variance necessary for the applicant to keep the boathouse or to even construct the boathouse in the first place. The next image shows the boathouse in relation to the property. Once again, it shows how wide the property is as well as how far the boathouse goes out from the shoreline. The following image shows the section view, and that's going to show the height of the boathouse. It's going to show the pitch of the roof. which was also another possible issue with the construction of this boathouse. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the actual ordinance and what the ordinance is trying to accomplish. And what the ordinance is trying to accomplish is trying to limit things like view obstruction or anything that could cause a nuisance to a neighbor or adjacent properties. So a lot of the different criteria that has been mentioned is for exactly that reason, is to, if your boathouse is too far out, there's view obstructions there. If your roof pitch is too high, there's view obstructions there. If your property is too narrow, there might be navigational issues, but also there are view obstructions there as well. So because of that, it's very important to get the neighboring property owners' input in cases like these, which is going to be our next topic of discussion, as there is one neighbor that has a house to the left or the west of this property at 821 Harborview Circle. That property is about 15 feet away from the Skinner property. And then the property on the right or the east is a property that does not have a residence on it currently. So the next slide here shows the correspondence that we have had with the neighboring property owner. The image that you see on the left is a phone conversation that I had with one of the property owners at 821 Harborview Circle. They did not have any objections to this particular case. Most of their concerns were originally taken care of in the original joint permit application with VMRC for the positioning of the pier. There were some revisions or adjustments made to that pier before it was constructed based on that property owner's comments. But as far as this boathouse is concerned, there were no objections that were listed by that property owner. And then the image on the right shows a simple email correspondence just stating that there were no objections to the project from the owner of lot 32. So that brings us to staff recommendations. As the staff report states that we do believe that the request could be considered questionable. The property owner and applicant did not go through the proper procedures for permitting, which is, at the forefront. We're able to look at a lot of those things before structures get constructed in a way that, becomes a nuisance to property owners and such. However, we also think that the board should consider the comments or the lack of objections that were given by the neighboring property owners. That should be taken into consideration, but also, taking into consideration or questioning, does the actual covered slipper boathouse take away from the character of the community or the neighborhood? And as there are, boathouses along this creek, this would not be the only individual unique boathouse here. So it would not necessarily take away from the neighborhood. But that'll be a decision for the board to make. And now I will just make myself available for any questions that the board has. Thank you.